My name is Jesse Hershkowitz, aka Herbalist. I was 25 years old at the time of my diagnosis, and the day I found out that I had cancer was in early September 2007. I had actually found out about a week prior to, that day that I had a tumor, but I had held on to a certain amount of hope that the tumor would be benign. Basically, they brought me into Sloan Kettering, New York, which is where I was treated, and they told me everything about the chemotherapy and what it entails and what kind of steps need to be taken to get you ready for it. And the whole time, I remember this thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to need to know. I'm not going to need to worry about this. My tumor's benign. And, they're going to go in, they're going to find out that it's benign. I don't need to do chemo. This isn't going to throw a huge monkey wrench into things. So, that's pretty much where my mind was at. One of the things that they told me, during this chemo orientation was they taught me about the Metaport, where, it's a device that goes into your chest, which is what they give you all the chemotherapy through. So my, test, I wasn't even going to ask anybody as soon as I woke up from the general anesthesia. My test was, I was going to pat myself on the chest. And if I didn't feel a Metaport in there, then I knew it would have been a benign tumor, and, the worst was probably over with, and, maybe might have had some mobility issues with my arm or shoulder. I had to, relearn a few things, but I wasn't going to have to do chemo. When I woke up from my surgery, I did tap my chest, and I felt a Metaport in there. And it was instantly devastating. I didn't need any doctor to come over to me and tell me that I had 8 months of chemo ahead of me. I didn't need any nurse in the recovery room to come over and hold my hand. I was just, I felt the port, and that was it. There was no consoling me. I remember after I got out of the recovery room, they wanted to keep me there overnight because, I had been through a lot during the surgical procedure. And my roommate at the time in the hospital was a 14-year-old boy from Canada who had bandages wrapped completely around his head, and his mother just told me had been through 7.5-hour operation to remove a tumor from his brain. And she was told all kinds of things that, he may not wake up from it, he may have long-term speech defects and, that kind of thing, but thank God it was benign. And I remember laying in my hospital bed, literally wishing that I was this kid. Because, I didn't care about the fact that a knife or a scalpel had just been in the brain or anything. I just wanted a benign tumor. And from where I laid in my bed, I had a malignant tumor, and I was looking at, 8 months to a year of chemo, and he had a benign tumor, and he was going home to Canada. So I wanted to be him. I had a pretty interesting and unique experience, though, going through my treatment. As I said earlier, was 25 years old when I was diagnosed, but I was diagnosed with a pediatric form of cancer. So I was treated at Sloan Kettering in New York on the 9th floor, which is the pediatrics floor. I remember, the two kids who were probably closest in age to me were 19 and 15. And, everybody else there was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so as much as I wanted to feel sorry for myself and depressed and bad for myself, I'm looking at these kids and I'm like, when I was 12, I was playing touch football and home run derby. I was, riding my bike all over the place and getting into trouble. And I don't know if I had it in me at the age of 12 to put up the kind of fight that I saw some of these kids, putting up. So I instantly decided that if they could do it, I could do it too. And I didn't do it on my own. I had a lot of assistance. My family was there for me every step of the way, and some really great friends were there for me as well. But what was really there for me was my passion for hip hop music. I had been a recording artist for about 10 years before my diagnosis, and I decided, I believe on the night of my diagnosis after I got home, that I was never going to make it if, I kept a negative and non-optimistic mentality. I was never going to make it if I stayed depressed and scared the whole time. So I kind of took it took the bull by its horns, so to speak, and I decided that I was going to write and record a hip hop album about the cancer fighting experience. I called it Cancerous Flow Lyrical Journal, and I set it up so that I basically started working on it the day after I was diagnosed, and I had my end date, my goal to finish the album for my last chemo treatment. So for the whole time I was doing chemo, it wasn't like, oh, I got 6 to 7 more months of this chemo to do. It was like, I only got 6 or 7 months before this album's got to be done. And, you know, I was in the vocal booth with my chemo backpack recording lyrics, and, you know, again, I had a few friends who I've, you know, recorded music with over the years come and help me out and do some of the mixing and engineering for me, but it was basically written, produced, and recorded by me while going through chemotherapy treatment, and it really ended up saving my life at the time. I promoted this album independently for a number of years after I beat the cancer, and earlier this year it was actually picked up by an awesome record label based out of Los Angeles called Shawnee Records, who has a great cancer you know, related story that, you know, brought that record label about, and they're very interactive with kids and teens and young adults, and, you know, very compassionate and you know, everything towards people who were in the kind of position that I was in. So it really became a perfect fit, and it was really, you know, the desire to live that brought me to this point in time in my life, and allowed me to really make a positive situation out of, you know, one of the most negative pieces of news I had ever heard in my life. So I can confidently say that I look back on the day I found out as both the worst and the best day of my life.